Did Bernie Sanders really say that Elizabeth Warren's ovaries are the reason she's quote unquote surging in the polls? That her vagina, her breasts, her femininity itself is the reason why she is propelling in the polls? I don't think he did. Vanity Fair. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. And yes, Vanity Fair runs a headline that Bernie Sanders says that Elizabeth Warren is surging in the polls because of her ovaries. And as typical of, quotes, they use colons. That's typical of quotes. What do I mean by that? If I'm doing a title on my video, I can either put the item in quotes or I can put a colon in front of it in order to indicate that this individual directly said this thing. For technicality's sake, Bernie Sanders never uttered those words. Never. Ever. At any moment in time, I don't necessarily know in life, but damn sure not in the past year. Then why is Vanity Fair writing this? What is Vanity Fair using? Now, from the standpoint of being in media, you have so many people that are in media, you have a pressure to kind of get your story above the fray. I needed to be more bombastic, more flamboyant, more out there where people would be interested in that they would click on this title. Wow, did Bernie Sanders really say that? Now, the other faction of people would just look at the title and say that rat bastard Bernie Sanders was in the race with Hillary Clinton when he didn't get out the race. He was being so sexist by running against it. It was his turn. It was his turn. Trump in Russia. Trump in Russia. Trump in Russia. Fucking Sanders. Those people are out there. They will read the title and they would keep on moving. Bernie Sanders said because of her ovaries. I want to correct this, that Bernie Sanders said no such thing. The person who put this here even put the conversation that she's deriving this from in her piece. But again, the majority of people don't read in the piece, they just read the title. So I want to go directly to the conversation, and I want you, using your brains that you've developed over the course of your life, to listen to what Sanders said and think about, is there another way she could have titled this? Did Bernie Sanders really exactly say what she's saying Bernie Sanders said? And we could talk about it afterwards. I think you're bright people, and you come to a very similar conclusion that this woman is being bombastic and at worst delusional.
Talking about right now.
Right.
Before you got to make it out of the primary. Elizabeth Warren and current polling is catching up to you. You got her, Biden, and you are now at the top of the polls. Let's talk about each of them. What do you think the reason is that Elizabeth Warren is catching up to you in polls? Do you believe that people see her as the more electable version of Bernie Sanders?
Well, I think we are running against a lot of problems. I think that there are a certain number of people who would like to see a woman elected, and I understand that. There are people who would like to see somebody who is younger, and I understand that also. There are a lot of factors out there. Elizabeth is a friend of mine. I think she's running a good campaign. But at the end of the day, Chris, whether it's Biden or Warren, Elizabeth Warren or anybody else, what I believe is that, in fact, I am the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump. And I think some of the polling shows that. I believe that our campaign can win in the states we have got to win.
You heard that for yourself. Now, I know the video is messing up. Bernie Sanders' eyes are closed. I don't know why Bernie Sanders' eyes are closed.
And that is Michigan.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I don't know why it's doing it, but you heard the audio. He said, there's some people who want to see a woman win presidency. I understand that. I understand that too, because it's true. He said there's some people who want to see a Hispanic president. There's some people who want to see another black person president. There's some people who want to see all sorts of things as president. I get that, and that's true. You have a lot of people who thought it was Hillary Clinton's turn. Those people still think it's a woman's turn. Totally understand that. My job is not to put somebody in president because of their gonads, because they have ovaries. I don't particularly care. I just want somebody who's competent to do that job and to affect the policies that I want. I don't care about their gender. I don't care about their race. I don't care about their sex. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about the policies. Full stop. He says, I understand they might want to see somebody younger. If she's going to run with this article, she could have also ran with Bernie Sanders says that somebody who's, I don't know, pre-puberty is what America wants. He said, I can understand those things. He says, but ultimately, I am the strongest candidate for this race, and I think the polls bear that out. He also made the point that she's running a good race. How on earth do you get from what he said here to a headline and a title like this? This is extraordinarily inaccurate. This is extraordinarily inaccurate. I'm sorry. Bess Levin, you're a clickbait artist. All of us are, to some degree. But you, ma'am, have taken the cake today. You, ma'am, have taken the cake today. And hey, I've bitten. Not only have I clicked on this article, so touche, I've also covered this article, so touche twice. I'm a useful idiot. But in this, I have to call this bullshit out. He said no such thing. And fact of the matter is, what he did say in that was indeed true. All of that was true. Let's see. Latin Rouge, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Leave a comment. I like it. Wes, thank you, Wes. As always. Thank you, Wes. I appreciate it. As always, I appreciate it. Look, Warren is surging to some degree. She's getting a lot of publicity that's coming up. And in an interesting way, I think that's to some degree good. I mean, I don't necessarily like Warren, especially not compared to Bernie Sanders. I think there's differences between the two. I think there are dramatic differences between the two, especially when you get to consistency and you get to issues of foreign policy. But I think it's interesting that somebody who's pushing lefty policy, at least on the domestic front, like, she's talking about, I saw the recent thing she's putting out about getting rid of private prisons. And I got to be honest, she has domestic programs to some degree that I like. I can't remember all of them up front, but I remember covering some of them, or at the very least, I cover news all day, meaning I run across news, even news that I don't necessarily cover. She has a lot of domestic programs that I like, but she's not Bernie Sanders, full stop. So I don't, put it this way, Biden is going to flame out, and it is going to be an interesting matter to have a horse race between a full-on lefty and I guess a questionable lefty, or let's say a jello lefty. Ish. I have doubts about Elizabeth Warren. All right, I'm going to end this here. I don't want this one to be long, but are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And just to play this video one more time so you can see Sanders' face move and everything else so you can see it's him. I don't want you to think I doctored the video.
Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida.
God.
Come on. The polling
to you. You got her. What do you think the reason is
let's hear it one more time.
that Elizabeth Warren is catching up to you in polls? Do you believe that people see her as the more electable version of Bernie Sanders?
Well, I think we are running against a lot of problems. I think that there are a certain number of people who would like to see a woman elected, and I understand that. There are people who would like to see somebody who is younger, and I understand that also. There are a lot of factors out there. Elizabeth is a friend of mine. I think she's running a good campaign. But at the end of the day, Chris, whether it's Biden or Warren, Elizabeth Warren or anybody else, what I believe is that, in fact, I am the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump. And I think some of...
By the way, I agree with her. when they look at polling, one of the things that Biden said was that his concern with Joe Biden, one of the things that Trump said was that his concern with Joe Biden, or the thing that scared him about Joe Biden, was whites. Joe Biden's, what I would consider racist history, or let's say history of working with outright races, let's say it that way, and being willing to work with outright races, including on racist legislation. Yeah, I'm using the word racist a lot. He was interacting with segregationists. He thought it was perfectly okay to bring up the fact that he loved working with segregationists. I think it's okay with calling those segregationists racist. Now, when I'm saying he's working with them, my point is this. That hurts him in the primary. That does not hurt him in the general. Trump knows that. And those white working class voters and everything else, Trump is terrified that Biden pulls them away from him. I think Trump needs to be concerned about Sanders. Because when you're looking at the polling, especially like in Iowa and those states, and you look at the lineup of the matchup, Sanders rips those people away from Trump. And not just there, in West Virginia and some of the other states. If you look at the matchup, Trump, Sanders, Trump and Biden, for the most part, have the exact same differential in regards to point spread. That's amazing. Understand what we're saying here. Like, this is a sea change. This is like seeing a UFO. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. You're talking about Bernie Sanders, the independent senator from Vermont that's sat in a corner with his thumb in his ass. He's getting stuff done, but for the most part, he's calling himself a socialist, so nobody wants to be around him, even though he's working with the Democrats. But nobody in any wildest dream would have thought that in a lineup against the president of the United States, that Bernie Sanders would literally be neck and neck with the corporate candidate. This is 8 years. 8 years. 8 years. When people tell me, oh, Sanders hasn't accomplished anything, Sanders hasn't done anything, Sanders about this, Sanders that. And I tell you, and I make the point, when Obama was in office, you couldn't even have a conversation about public option. Sanders is running on Medicare for all. You could not have this conversation on this really mass scale energy thing. Sanders is running on the Green New Deal. Expansion of Social Security, free public college. These are the things that he's running on, unabashed. I want to get rid of our use of, in the way we use oil. I want to change that. I want to modernize our system. We need to raise taxes on the top marginal tax rate. Billionaires need to pay more. Millionaires need to pay more. Companies need to pay more. Out there bashing one company after the next. He is in the top one, like literally at the top, running neck and neck with Trump. Socialists. Explain to me how nothing was accomplished in the last 8 years. And I don't mean necessarily that Obama was great. I mean from the standpoint of the last election, or let's say the last 3 years. The last election. An election of Biden will undo all of this. An election of Biden will undo all of this. The momentum is here now. There's no reason to believe that the momentum will stay over the next 4 years under a corporate president. And again, I consider Elizabeth Warren a mixed bag, and I have no idea whether she owes or she. She hasn't in the past. There's no reason to believe she will in the future. I'm just here. Wes, as always, thank you. It's always appreciated, man. You guys really help build the channel, and this video will likely be demonetized. All of them are being demonetized, so this one also. I'll end it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Even $1 helps. Thanks all. I see you momentarily.